So for this one, we're going to use CSS to configure a drop-down menu that will display when the visitor hovers over our navigation link. So I'm going to come in here. This is going to be 11.9. I'm going to copy all the files from this Beefstro folder into my new folder. I'm going to open up this index, and I can see I've got coffee, cuisine, directions, contact. All of those take me to those pages like I want them to. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if I look in here, I've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different pages. So we're going to be creating some links with those. So I'm going to edit this in Notepad. My list item index, coffee, cuisine. After that cuisine, I'm going to come in here, not type an unordered list like that. Within that, I'm going to add 3 links or list items. So under my cuisine, I'm going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I'm going to save it, run it in Chrome, and this again starts to look like a little bit of a hot mess. That's okay. So I'm going to open up this beefstro.css file. Beefstro.css, edit with Notepad. I'm going to configure the submenu with absolute positioning. We covered this in chapter 7, so I want to take the nav element's position right now as static, and so I'm going to add a declaration to the styles for the nav element selector. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to find that nav element selector. So we've got background, letter spacing, font weight, text align, padding right, and so I'm going to add position relative. And the submenu displays the hyperlinks for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so remember, this is in a new unordered list element that's contained within our unordered list element. So I'm going to configure a descendant nav ul selector. So because I want it in the unordered list, which are in the unordered list, which are in a navigation. So I'm going to put this, here's the end of my navs. So I'm going to bring it down here. I'm going to go nav ul. Position, absolute, background, color, padding, display, text align, left, so we've got all of that in there. Now we're going to style each list item within the submenu. So again, it gets a little confusing. Put it down here. So our navs, ul, list items. So list items, which are in a ul, which are in a ul within our navigation. Border, 1 pixel solid, color, display, block, width, 8 EM, padding left, 1 EM, margin left, 0. Now we're going to configure the submenu unordered list to display when the hover is triggered for the list items. So again, down here at the bottom, nav, list item, hover, UL, display, block. Save this, go over here, let's see if we did everything correctly. Home, coffee, cuisine. So something's not working. So let's go back to our code and see what that is. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to try to validate my CSS. So let's CSS looks good. Let's validate our HTML then, see what we get with that. Maybe we messed up somewhere there. Now that's probably going to give us an error for this unordered list nested within an unordered list, but that's okay. For our context, that's what we want to do. Okay, so really those are the only two errors it's giving us. So not seeing why we've got the error. So let's go back, and when in doubt, sometimes I just recode. So under this cuisine, I'm going to do an unordered list with 3 list items. Okay, I'm going to, ooh, what did I do there? I'm going to save that. It's beefstro.css, which is what it's supposed to be linking to. I'm going to file, save as beefstro2.css just to see if that does anything. bistro2.css. Save. Launching Chrome. Still not pulling it up. So I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to go back to the CSS that we coded, and I'm going to look and see if I can figure out where, if I made an error somewhere. So I'm looking back through my CSS, and that's okay. And I'm looking back through here, and I think I have found, when I look at what they wanted me to configure, I was supposed to put this unordered list within that list item. So I did the list item and then put the unordered list. So if I move the closing list item from that one here and save it and run it, now it works. I didn't have it nested within that list item, and that was what the issue was. I had ended the list item and then added those 3 and then did to the next list item without adjusting that close. So whereas the list item was closed here, I needed to close it so that this unordered list was nested within this cuisine list item.